Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. Happy Friday. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We have three panelists that are friends of mine and HBCU alumni, and a huge appreciation to them for agreeing to participate in this. But before we get started with the panel question Q&A, I wanted to give a little bit of a background on HBCUs just in case any participants today are not familiar with them. So HBCU U's are, it stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and they emerged to provide Black Americans the most basic of rights, access to full education. So some of what many, there were some HBCUs that were founded prior to the Civil War, and many of them came afterwards. So in most southern states and many of the northern states, Black Americans were not allowed to have access to education. So we had to found our own institutions in order to educate our communities. So a few of the only Black schools prior to the Civil War were Cheyney University, which was established in 1837, the University of the District of Columbia in 1851, Lincoln University in 1854, and Wilberforce University in 1856, which two of our esteemed panelists are alumni of Wilberforce. So most of the nation's HBCUs were founded by philanthropists with a combination of free Black Americans. The southern states, as part of Reconstruction, were required by the federal government to essentially establish HBCUs. So that's when there was a huge emergence of many of the colleges. And then there are some that were founded by religious organizations such as like the AME Church or things like that. So before higher education was desegregated in the 1950s and 60s, almost all Black college students enrolled in HBCUs. So a couple of fast facts about HBCUs. Currently, there are 102 HBCUs, and that makes up only about 3% of the total colleges and universities in the United States. However, you can look at the numbers on the screen. Those graduates account for 75% of all Black PhDs, 50% of Black engineers, 85% of the total of all Black doctors, 75% of Black military officers, 46% of Black executives, 80% of Black federal judges, 50% of attorneys, and the list goes on and on. So HBCUs in the past and in the present day have been vital to educating the prominent figures in the African-American community. So HBCUs have also become a magnet for many international students due to the academic programs, affordability, and diverse and inclusive environments. Although HBCUs were originally founded to educate Black Americans, today 1 in 4 students at HBCUs is a non-Black student. So here in California, so obviously Clovis Community College is a part of the California Community College system. So we are a part of their HBCU transfer admission guarantee agreements. There are currently 40 agreements in place, and the number grows, it seems like each day. So students who meet the minimum requirements are given guaranteed admission to those 40 colleges. They also, at some of the schools, are able to receive in-state tuition. They get priority for housing consideration, considering, all of our students. There's no HBCUs in California, unfortunately. So all of our students that are coming from California community colleges would be, moving away from home. So that's a huge consideration. There are a lot of other perks just depending on the school that you choose to transfer to. So if you have any other questions, Tasha Hutchings, she is our counselor, our transfer counselor. So you can always email her or reach out to her, schedule an appointment if you have any questions about how you can transfer from Clovis Community College to one of our HBCUs with the transfer admission guarantee. So with no further ado, we're going to jump right on in to our panel. So again, thank you all so much for being here. So first we have Miss Naija Simon. She is her and I went to high school together. So I've known Naija for a really long time. She is a graduate of Wilberforce University, and she is the CEO of a public relations firm. So I'm just going to read her quick little bio. So Naija Simon was born into a close-knit family, so she understands the value of a strong foundation. She is a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And as the CEO and founder of Naija Simon and Associates, she is excited to take charge and make a positive imprint through all things public relations and planning. Naija personifies the new guard of PR strategists and has her finger on the zeitgeist of the intersection of issues, the news cycle, pop culture, and the HBCU sector. So thank you so much, Naija, for being here. We also have Dr. Corinthian Tyson. He is a graduate of Hampton University, and he is he's a chiropractor. So Dr. Corinthian Tyson was born in Bakersfield, California, and was raised in his early years in the small town of Tehachapi, California. Finished his junior high and high school years back in Bakersfield. And just a plug here that he did not put in his bio, since this is a BSU event, Corinthian was the statewide BSU president. That's how we met way back in the day at one of the conferences, but he was very heavily involved with the Black Student Union in high school. So jumping back in, he attended Hampton University and graduated with his Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology with a pre-med concentration in 2013. He later received his doctorate of chiropractic from Southern California University of Health Sciences, which is also where he met his beautiful wife. Dr. Tyson and his wife have 2 dogs named Cola and Sprite, and they have their first baby on the way, which is due on April 1st, so just right around the corner. Dr. Tyson has worked as a chiropractor in the cities of Arcadia, Rancho Cucamonga, and Bakersfield, and he plans on opening up an office alongside his wife later this year. And then last but certainly not least, Skye Ward is the senior account executive at the Bay Area Propane in Oakland, California. He is a graduate of Mojave High in North Las Vegas. He went on to attend and graduate from Wilberforce University in 2011. Wilberforce University is the oldest private HBCU in the country. Founded in 1856, like I mentioned previously. While in college, Skye became a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated in 2008 and went on to earn the title of Mr. Wilberforce 2 years in a row, 2009 and 2010. After graduation from Wilberforce in 2011 with his degree in business management, he went on to serve as an intercontinental ballistics missile ICBM operations officer in the United States Air Force. He completed his MBA at Grand Canyon University and separated as a captain from the Air Force in 2017. Today, Skye is an active member of his fraternity, a published author, and an avid speaker. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. So we're gonna jump right on in with the questions. So I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see your lovely faces, if that's okay. Thanks so much. I just want to make sure I can connect with you guys. So, I guess we can start off by having each of the panelists just give us a little bit of your background information, um, maybe stuff that wasn't covered in the bio, but just tell us a little bit about yourself um, and maybe activities that you participated while in undergrad. So we can go ahead and start with Skylar.
All right, can you hear me? Good. Awesome. So what wasn't covered, and thank you first off for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity, Karis. I'll do anything for a Wilberforce alum or any of my Wilberforce family. So this is a great opportunity. Thank you for having me. Outside what was covered in my bio, in undergrad, the only other things that I participated in was I was a founder of Clef Society of Distinguished Artists. I was a RA. I was in the NAACP and UNCF among several other things at my university. If you went to Wilberforce University between 2007, 2011, you saw my face a lot. I was around in just about any and every capacity. So I just encourage people to get involved. If you're in school, get involved, get into some programming, identify where you fit in, and then do some things to step outside your norm, get outside your box and find things to push and stretch yourself. So my bio pretty much covered a lot about me, so I won't suck up too much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Naija, would you like to go next?
Yes, and just to piggyback off what Skylar said, thank you, Karis, for having me, and it's really good to sit on this panel with other HBCU alumnus. So at Wilberforce, I was really active. I cheered, I danced, I even started an organization called Women of Opportunity. I was a part of Power at the Polls. I was really active. I sat on the Board of Trustees as a student rep. And anything that had to do with service, I was just there, active and present.
Awesome, thank you so much. And Corinthian, you're next.
What's up, Chris? Long time no see.
I know, it's been years.
I don't even want to talk after Naija and Brother Ward went. So, but yeah, like you mentioned, like back in high school, was in BSU, president of BSU. Just like Brother Ward, also I was Mr. Hampton University, or Mr. Pirate, what we call it, because that's our mascot out there between 2012 and 2013. I was a co-facilitator for, we call it SLP, stood for Student Leadership Program. And they pretty much ran the campus. Like, you know, the fraternities and sororities ran the campus, but in terms of like events and homecoming and stuff like that, we put everything together. So I was a part of that for the 3 years I was there, but I was co-facilitator for with the last 2 years I was there. Did some fashion shows here and there. That's pretty much it. But yeah.
Awesome, thank you guys so much. So my next question is, what made you attend an HBCU? So we are all West Coast kids, so we all had to travel pretty far. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really say this about myself, but I attended Wilberforce University for a year. I did transfer, so I have a bit of experience attending an HBCU. And then I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino, which is where I graduated from. So I have, you know, both sets of experience to draw on, but definitely a huge proponent of HBCUs. So my question for the panel, and anyone can jump in wherever you'd like to, in whatever order, but what made you choose to attend an HBCU, particularly above the options that you would have had locally?
So yeah, oh, go ahead, Corinthian, you want to go? So yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in. So for me, so my first choice was I wanted to go to USC. I wanted to be a cheerleader, and then pursue to be a professional Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. And my family was not going with it. My dad, actually, let me be correct. My dad was not going for it. So my dad is a graduate from Texas Southern University, and so he is an alum as well, and he's an advocate for, everyone attending an HBCU. And so he told my mother that I was extremely spoiled and I needed to develop some character, and me going to an HBCU would help me develop that character. However, because going to Central and me being really close knit with my family and being really active in the church, I wasn't prepared to go to a big state school, right? And so we decided that a private institution would be the best for me. So we had literally put all these institutions in a hat, your Benedicts, your Wilberforce, and there's a host of them. And interesting, I pulled out Wilberforce out of the bowl. And it just so happened 2 weeks later, they were touring to Central. And so I'm like, okay, this is some type of alignment. It's meant to be. And so Hardy Brown gave me a scholarship to do the Step Up program, which allowed me to take my general ed courses during the summer. And then since then, it has literally been the best decision that I think I made. And it was really because of the influence of my father. He wanted me to understand the culture and know that there was more outside of California, and that although I believe I still can be a professional cheerleader, that was not going to happen for me. So that's why we went to Wilberforce.
Thank you, Naija. Corinthian, did you want to go next?
Yeah. So I fell in love with my HBCU with no intention. I originally I wanted to go to UC Berkeley, and once everything planned out and I applied, the only two HBCUs I applied to were FAMU and Hampton. And once I got to Hampton, I had no intention of staying. I was like, this is great, you guys are cool, but I'm about to be leaving come next term. But soon after, I met everybody there, and I got a hint of the traditions that they had there at the school, and just the love that they had at an HBCU. I didn't want to leave anymore. So the reason I chose Hampton was I have a sister that was stationed in the Navy out in I think it was Portsmouth or Norfolk, one of those. I forgot what city. But she was stationed out there, and she had a son. So I wanted to be closer to her and my nephew at that time. So that was the main reason why I pulled towards Hampton before FAMU. But generally speaking, I just wanted to get away. I predominantly went to white schools. I mean, since preschool, since I started school, I was in predominantly white schools. If anybody's familiar with the small town Tehachapi, it's predominantly white, super small town. And once I actually moved to Bakersfield, I was still at a predominantly white school. And I just wanted to be more around my people. So that's ultimately why I chose to go to HBCU.
Let's see. So my story is a little different than the other two. So my father was in the Navy. I grew up in a lot of places. That's how we ended up in San Diego, Oceanside, California. He's attached to a Marine Corps unit down there. So I grew up near the beach. I knew I wanted to be near water. So I applied to every HBCU near water. I needed the ocean. But I went to high school, of course, with some of my best friends, and my best friend, Carlos Sampson, got into Wilberforce. And he was one of those students that was a terrible student. He was a terrible student, but he sweet talked his way into this wonderful HBCU. And that made me do my research about what the school was. My father raised me to always search my information, know our history, know our knowledge, and get in depth with it. And so going to Wilberforce became my primary goal because my best friend went to that school. So I decided to abandon all being near any ocean because Wilberforce is in the middle of Ohio, so there's no water anywhere, no joy anywhere as far as beach life. But what I found was a school that not only gave me a full ride scholarship, but gave me a lot of opportunities to be around my people. Growing up in the military, if you grew up around military people, you just know it's a a hodgepodge of cultures and everything, but you don't really get to soak up what I consider genuine, true Black culture experience in the diaspora. So Wilberforce provided me that. That's the reason I ended up going to an HBCU. I knew I was only going to go to an HBCU. I did not apply to any PWIs at all. I only applied to HBCUs. Wilberforce was the school that gave me a free education and gave me a lot of opportunity, and I got to go with my best friend. So that made it easier.
Free education wins for sure.
Definitely. You got to go where the money is, honestly. These student loan payments are not a joke. So above everything else, honestly, for me, that's always my biggest thing. So thank you guys so much for your experience, for sharing your experiences. So next I'd like to talk a little bit about experiences that you had while attending your respective colleges that were unique, things that you felt like you wouldn't have got at a different college, and particularly if you want to focus on the academic side. So you have connections with professors or instructors or things like that.
Guess I'll jump in first again. So yes, for me, one of the things that was a takeaway and the things I enjoyed the most about Wilberforce was it was really family oriented, and that was not only in the social space but also in the academic space. I believe that the ratio to students was no more than like I would say like 20 to 1 maybe, and that may be a little low. But however, in all of my classes, the relationship I had with my professors was really interpersonal. We were able to exchange numbers. I could reach out to them for any assistance I need, and they were extremely hands-on with the progression of my education. They were holding me accountable. If I wasn't in class, if I didn't get an email, they would call my phone. And I just love that I always had access to them. And even now, as an alum, my favorite professor, Dr. Tanya Moore, and she works in the field of public relations as well. I can always reach out to her for some guidance. And I don't think that I would have gotten that same treatment if I would have went to USC or any other institution. Because for the lack of terms, I think HBCUs are really for instilling the culture in the students. And at Wilberforce, I was exposed to the culture from whether my friends were from Detroit, Michigan, or the South side of Chicago. All of that was implemented in the classroom, and I couldn't have gotten that experience anywhere else.
So for me, what I love the most about our faculty and staff, a lot of our administration and faculty went to Wilberforce, whether it was in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. They had went to our university. They had an attachment to the school and a genuine love for our institution. So I felt the energy was a little different than growing up, like Corinthian touched on, in a public school system that didn't really reflect us. To be taught by all Black professors, I didn't have my first Black professor or teacher until I was in college. So that was my first time having an instructor and support staff and system that where they all looked like me for the most part, with the exception of 1, 2 here and there in the tech lab with Bill and things like, everybody else at the school was basically African American or fell into the African diaspora. So, you just kind of understand that they are connected to you, and there's a different amount of investment when a professor takes your hand, as Naija touched on, and really walks you through. A lot of our professors taught all of those courses. So they taught your freshman, sophomore, junior, your senior classes. So they watched your transition. They watched your progression of your matriculation. And it was really nice to have professors that cared, and you knew they cared because they would call you and they would come to your dorm room and they knew where you stayed and they would find you if you didn't show up to class, and they held you accountable a little bit different. Some people would say that's kind of babying you, but if you've never been properly fostered in the education system, to finally get that as an adult where you can be receptive to what people are really investing in you, it's actually a great time to get that if it never happened for you prior. So I loved our staff, our faculty, our admin, and our president was a Greek from our school. So she understood what we were going through when those times of year came around. So it was great.
I'll say for my school, it's a little different. I don't recall having that much, I don't want to say assistance, but that much encouragement from professors, although the class sizes were pretty small. I know some people definitely had that advantage and that benefit. I would say a lot of the family that I got were just from the students there. Like I had never seen that many people, and I know a lot of people can vouch for this too. Like you're like, man, like how you see somebody on campus or something like that, and just like, wow, like how long have you guys known each other? Like you expect them to be knowing each other since elementary school. It's like, oh no, we got the same class. We just met like last year. It's like, okay, wow, y'all real close. So, but that was really nice because even when I had my wedding, like majority of my groomsmen were from my school, and mind you, like these guys were coming from Maryland, from Georgia, from Virginia, like all across the country. And that's because we were just that tight. We're not in the same fraternity. Like we weren't all in the same thing. If we had something in common, it was because we were in gospel choir together or something like that. But there was definitely a lot of love in regards to just the students, and just like, well, I'll take care of you, and I'll house you if you're ever traveling or something like that. So I could even, I mean, when I was in school, if I wanted to travel just to a different state or something like that, I know I could call on somebody if I needed a place to stay or something like that. So that was always really nice. And another thing that I still love about my school that was really unique was how, and I'll talk about probably like a lot of traditions in regards to our school, but the classes, we all had a different name. So for example, my class name when I came into the school was called QT8. It stands for Quintessence 8. So Quintessence was the actual class name, and 8 was basically the seniors passed their name on to the freshmen. So when I came into Hampton as a freshman, the seniors, their class name is called QT7 or Quintessence 7. So basically we get blessed with the name of the seniors once we come in. And that in itself is just a way of just kind of like, making that tight-knit family type of thing happen within the school, which was really nice. Because you have, freshmen coming in from all across the country. They may not have any friends there, but for them to be invited into the school by other people that are going there, and seniors and stuff like that, to be given this name and to be taught these songs, because every class had their own little song and stuff like that they would chant at different homecoming games and stuff like that. That was really nice to have at your leisure. So
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Just to jump in a little bit and piggyback on some of the things you guys said, I think that just in my 1 year that I was at school in Ohio, I probably still communicate with more people that I met during that time than the 4 years that I was at Cal State San Bernardino. It's not to say that I wasn't social or active at those places, but it's just a deeper connection that you build with people. So, 12 years later, when I'm wanting to throw together an alumni panel, I can hit up Skylar from way back when, and he's happy to participate. Or I know that for myself, I travel a lot. So when I've traveled, if I'm in different cities, I often will connect with friends that I made in that year, and we'll go to dinner or hang out or whatever. And this is years separate from, me attending the school. So can definitely vouch for the friendships and connections, even after such a short amount of time, there. Also with, instructors and staff at the college. So Mr. Brown moved to San Bernardino when I essentially transferred. So I was able to keep in contact with him, from the years that I was out there. I still talk to him now, every now and again. But one of my professors at the time, I was a political science instructor, God no, political science major. And Dr. Bakars was my instructor, bright and early, 8 o'clock in the morning. Don't know why I ever did that to myself, but nevertheless, especially in the spring semester because there's snow and all that fun stuff. But I would drag myself to class and be half asleep, but I love the subject matter, and he made it interesting. And throughout the next few years that I was in college after I transferred, I stayed in contact with him, and he was the one who, anytime I needed a letter of recommendation, he was pretty much always the one that I would ask until I got into my major classes for econ. a couple years later, he always would reach out. And even still now, he, hits me up on Facebook and asks what I'm doing and things like that. And that's from taking one class with him over a decade ago now. So I can definitely attest to the connection and follow-up that I experienced while I was there. So jumping into the next question, Corinthian talked a little bit about some of the traditions and especially among students that were that happened at his campus. If anyone else wants to jump in about some of the traditions and even just some of the maybe social life aspects, a lot of people who are interested in HBCUs, we've seen, especially as a California kid, where it's not like you can just go to the events that are here. We see Drumline and we see Stomp the Yard, right? Maybe if you watched what's it called, A Different World back in the day, things like that. But we don't have a lot of exposure to what it really is like to attend an HBCU. So if you want to talk a little bit about the social life and experiences, what people can kind of expect, and maybe some misconceptions about like what we see on TV, obviously, and how that is different from the reality of going to these schools.
Absolutely. Just to break up the pattern of Naija going first. We let her go first because we're gentlemen. That's what happens. But I'll jump in. For Wilberforce University, there are a lot of traditions. We have a saying that you come in green and you go out gold. That is how we term, the terms or phrase that we use for your matriculation through. But some of my favorite things ever, even before I was Greek or before I was Mr. Wilberforce, was just the random campus barbecue, or the random, somebody had a speaker and somebody had a playlist, and you would have a party at any given moment, anywhere, at any time. There were always opportunities, as Corinthian touched on, to travel to other cities. And so we would take road trips and go to other schools, and that they had step shows. The step show was the thing. And at Wilberforce, Dawn Dance Alumni Weekend is kind of the big weekend. It's what you look forward to. At many schools, every school has a homecoming. For us, homecoming is not the thing. Okay, so you go to Dawn Dance in the spring for the alumni weekend, because nothing cooler than watching all the alumni come back and really give love to the university and feel that life of having people that graduate in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, all in one place, all in one space, just giving love and that sense of family. That was kind of our day-to-day thing. I loved campus life. Once I became a Greek and became Mr. Wilberforce, everywhere I went, I felt popular, and I was never popular before those moments. So that gave me a platform to feel cool for a little bit. But I loved being on campus. I loved when the dance team did their thing, or when the Greeks would just start a yard show. And that's when we get out and do chants and steps just randomly, just to, get some competition going before the step show. We'll kind of egg each other on. And the energy was so good. And so you guys got me reminiscing now. Now I'm back in my mode.
Just to jump in really quick, Skylar was always popular, like always. Everyone
Right.
always knew who he was. He was the very first person I met when I attended there. So don't believe the hype. There was a reason he was two-time Mr. Wilberforce. So just to jump back in. Mr. Hampton, do you want to talk about your experiences next?
Sure. Man, it's a lot of traditions. One thing that was really fun was we called it 12-2. So through the student center was like, a spot that sometimes people would just kind of walk through on their way to class and stuff like that. They had, like little restaurants in there, and spots where you can like shoot pool or just kind of chill or whatever. But there would be a DJ playing music from 12-2, and at any given moment, like Skylar was saying, it might just be a dance party in between classes. Like it might just go down. That was awesome. And two other things I'll mention. One is, so at Hampton, if you can look this up, if you looked at Ogden Circle or Ogden Hall, It's one of the oldest buildings on campus, and that's where they have a lot of, orchestra will perform there, or any type of concert or something like that. And outside of Ogden Hall, there is there's a circle, and inside the circle, it's a large circle. It's probably maybe, I don't know, 40 yards in diameter or something like that. The whole inner circle is filled with grass, and the outside is like brick, and it's like this curb, and all these flags around the circle. And all the flags are from all different countries, and it's supposed to represent, everybody that comes to Hampton, because contrary to popular belief, not all Black people go to Black schools. There's other races there too. So it's pretty cool just to see the different countries and stuff like that, so you can see how, schools represented by different countries. But the urban legend is, if you ever step on that grass before you graduate, you may not graduate, or your graduation will be postponed. So that's the urban legend. So to celebrate that, once the seniors get to graduation, the day before graduation, we all celebrate and meet up at Ogden Circle, and we all together cross and walk over the grass and cross the circle. So, and it's just like, it's not even just like we're just there, like staff is there, professors are there, because it's a huge celebration. And, like for you to be able to be there and walk across the grass knowing that you got to graduate the next day, it was super awesome. And then I guess you could say you are very prone to senioritis at the school, because that's not the only celebration seniors have to commemorate graduating. 100 days celebration is another one, we call it. And like I mentioned, the 12 to 2, people in the student center, dance and stuff like that. 100 days is basically the seniors again get together 100 days before graduation, and pretty much make all the other students feel terrible about themselves, because while they still have to go to class, we pack the student center during 12 to 2 while people are still in class, and just have a ball. I mean, alphas are stepping, AKAs are like everybody's stepping and strolling, and it's just a great time, celebrating 100 days before graduation.
Well, we don't have 100 days of celebrating. However, we do celebrate. One of the traditions I always remember is, as a freshman, as Skylar said, we come in green, leave out gold, and we walk down the hill. And then when we're graduating, we walk up the hill, and we have our candles, and it's just a real sacred ceremony. It's really, really fun. However, from a social standpoint, just to piggyback off Tyler, there was always someone with a speaker and a playlist. So in between classes, walking to your dorms, you would party, and maybe you went to your next class. I'm encouraging people to go to class, but if you didn't, now I understand why. In addition, one of the biggest things for me is we had midnight caf. So we would go into the caf at midnight, and it was a party, and it was just so much, energy, because there's people from all over. And, for a girl coming from Fresno, California, it's Wilberforce, Ohio, in the same room with people from Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis. Like, these are like my friends, and hearing their different style of music, because I'll be the first to say, I'm a big fan of Britney Spears and NSYNC, and, come from California, at the time in 2008 through 2012, people weren't getting jiggy to Britney. I was, but people weren't. So to be put on to the Erykah Badu's and the Maxwell, and just to be exposed to different music and, just other people's lifestyle, was something that I always cherish, because I wouldn't have gotten that any other way. But of course, the basketball games, and Wilberforce, we don't have a football team, so basketball was our sport. So to just be at the basketball game, and although I experienced being a cheerleader and a jazzer, it was just the energy. It was just amazing. And so those were always the highlights of my moments.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. I know for myself, one of the things that stood out to me at Wilberforce that was not something that ever happened when I went to Cal State San Bernardino were the convocation days, where even that orientation week, freshman orientation week, they throw us all into the auditorium and bring in speakers, and you have sessions and workshops and all sorts of things that pour into you in different ways. Like I know that there's a women's conference, and you have to be dressed up nicely to go to convocation. You have to wear business attire. And I remember there was an etiquette session, and there were just so many different things. There would be job fairs, but those were one of the things that stood out to me, because you have instructors and people from your college that you'll continue to see on a daily basis. And also they would bring in, alumni or different speakers to try to teach you other things. I always felt like they weren't just trying to teach us in the classroom a specific subject matter. It was to help you know your history, your culture, and how to navigate the world outside of being a student. So that's something that I always remember. And that wasn't necessarily, I'm not going to say that those events there wasn't convocation at Cal State San Bernardino, but I'm not going to say that there weren't campus events or things like that, but they weren't a campus-wide mandated thing where everyone has to be there and learn these things together. So that was something that always stood out to me. So next, I'd like you guys to share how your time at your college, at your HBCU has helped you professionally and personally.
I'll go. I will say, one thing I didn't mention is I played drums for Hampton University's gospel choir for about three years that I was there. And I was really fresh coming in regards to being a musician, coming into college. And through that, well, actually through my dorm, I met one of my best friends. His name's Orion Burke. And I grew so fast as a musician. And I put a lot of it on him because he's just like a prodigy. He plays like 12 different instruments, and he's just a super smart guy. But just being involved in the choir and stuff like that in the music definitely helped me as a musician. And at that time, you're in school and stuff like that. So if you're fortunate enough, you don't really have to work. You may have a scholarship or parents that help you out and that kind of thing. And I was fortunate enough to learn so quickly in regards to drums and stuff like that. I was able to make some money on the side, thankfully, like while I was in school. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was, enough to give me some food here every now and then. So that was really nice. So, I mean, professionally, yeah, I'm a doctor, I'm a chiropractor, but there's other things that I like to do as well. So it's been nice to be able to play at so many different, there's so many different states and cities and churches and stuff like that as a musician. And I've met my top admirers when it comes to musicians and stuff like that, because I was able to be involved still in music and that kind of thing. So, but that guy, we're still just like this. Although he lives in Virginia, he just had his son not long ago, him and his wife, and they asked us to be his godparents. So that's always really nice. And again, that kind of goes back to, you build these bonds when you're in school and you meet these people for the first time, and you may even think they're crazy, because I thought he was crazy when he walked into my room introducing himself to me in my dorm. But these relationships, if you nurture them, they'll last a lifetime. So that's always been really nice. Did I answer the question? I just feel like I just went on a rant.
No, you answered it. You definitely answered it.
I'll jump in. So one of the things Wilberforce has taught me and helped me a lot. So as a public relations practitioner, I engage with a lot of different people with a lot of different lifestyles. And not only did I learn this from my upbringing, but Wilberforce was like my play field. The way I communicate with someone from Detroit is not the same way I would communicate with someone from Baltimore. And then having such a diverse group of friends with different, majors. Some were engineers, some were communication, some were social work. Being able to communicate on the terms that they understood now helps me navigate with my clients. Because I represent a host of different industries, I always apply that back to school and family. And then it just, Wilberforce also on the personal side made me appreciate who I was, being, a Black woman in 2021, but between 2008 and 2012, I was growing into that woman. And Wilberforce paved the way for me in a lot of different areas, whether it was how I communicated, how I showed up in rooms, how I handled my business. There was a lot of hands-on that they groomed me for. And I don't think, again, I always say this because it's true. I don't think I would have gotten that at any other institution, because between the professors, just the overall administration, and then my peers, they all helped me to really just be this woman I am today that can navigate in a professional setting and a personal setting.
Mine very similar to the other two, so I'll keep it sweet and short. Wilberforce gave me an opportunity to learn how to network. End of the day, what I am now is a culmination of the relationships I was able to build at that point. Um, my professors wrote my letters for me to get into the Air Force when I went to military school and stuff. So after Wilberforce and became an officer in the Air Force, that was because Wilberforce professors wrote those letters. Those, as Brother Corinthian is, those doctors wrote those letters. Those letters matter after the name past a certain point. So, it's very important to understand the power of networking. I also co-own a company right now with my best friend and my brother Carlos called Beat Network, and it's a multimedia company. And we have interviewed almost every single person that is somebody from Wilberforce. We have interviewed them, and we have friends that are on in movies and in music and radio and whatever you may do. We may have interviewed them at this point. And again, if I wouldn't have put in that work and effort back then and built those genuine relationships and bonds, who knows where I would be right now. And it gave me an opportunity to build a current platform where now X amount of years later, where we're still moving and grinding and going into year 5 of Beat Network. So I would always encourage networking. That's kind of what my university gave to me, was just the power of friendship, as Naija touched on, being able to get around a bunch of different type of people and learn how to communicate effectively to get what you need from them and to make sure that you're investing in them to make it personal. So that was really what I took from it.
There's one more thing that I will add, because Naija made me think about this. Hampton was very, I want to say strict, but I'll say strict in regards to you being a gentleman. If you didn't have any manners when it came to women, and I say women specifically, they did not play that. They made sure you knew to hold open doors, to walk women back to their dorm. That's one thing I really appreciated, and it definitely stuck with me, because even now, like it improves your cognition in regards to knowing who's around you, who may need help, and that kind of thing. And it definitely forms you into being a gentleman.
That's really unique. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, so what advice do you guys have for students? So we're a community college. These students are, 18, 19 typically, and straight from high school, they came to us and now they're looking to transfer. What advice do you have for students who are considering HBCUs and maybe are scared to move away? Any advice you can give them, or for their parents? My mom hopped in here, so my mom was a big part of the reason I left Wilberforce. So yeah, I'm throwing her under the bus for that one. But nevertheless, you know, how did you guys navigate talking to your parents about you being away, being so far from home? What advice would you have for students in similar circumstances?
I should say just do it. I have this thought process that what is the worst that can happen? You don't like it, and you can always go back to California. However, I would always recommend to do some research, look at the programs they offer, whether it be from the academic standpoint or from, the social standpoint. If you're interested in Greek life, do your research. I'm a huge believer in people stepping out on faith. And there's so much more than Clovis. And for me, there was so much more than Fresno. And it's true because you get to go out of state, and like Wilberforce is in the middle of everywhere. So we were only, 4.5 hours away from Chicago. We were only 3 hours away from Detroit. We were only 2 hours from Indianapolis. And it's like, when you meet people, when you make friends and you meet people from these different cities, you get to go and explore and meet their friends and their family. And there's just so much more than Clovis. And so just do it. And if you don't like it, the beauty is you can always come back. So that would be my advice.
I'll say God's not going to bring you somewhere where he's not going to help you out and help you finish. I remember when I was in school, this guy, he told me, he's like, man, you ever feel like you're just not supposed to be here and like things are just jacked up and, like it's not for you? And I'm like, yeah, all the time. He's like, then you're supposed to be here. Like, that's perfectly normal. It's not going to be easy, you know what I mean? But like Nancy said, you just got to step out on faith if that's what you want to do. Do your research. I will say this, however, it's all great. And I understand like HBCUs and there's so many differences and they're all unique. And if you want to go Greek and, you prefer to go to HBCU where that specific fraternity sorority was established, that's all great. But at the end of the day, no matter what school you went to, student loans are still the same. So if you are going to a community college or you plan on transferring, and I'll speak for myself, you're already in a better position than I am because you already have that leg up in regards to having your funds in order a lot better. I'll say that because that's one of the main things is that's going to stick with you, after you graduate. So if you did your research and you know exactly what you want to do once you graduate, that kind of thing, don't just know what you want to do. Have a good idea as to how much money you're going to be making, because like I said, at the end of the day, that's what matters is how much money you're making based off what your student loans is. Because and I won't go too far into this, but you want to get out of debt as far as you can, because people want to go to college to to better themselves, and ultimately you're bettering your family in that sense. And the best way to better your family is to be sure that you have your affairs in order to the extent that your debt is paid off. And I'm not just talking about student loans, I'm talking about consumer debt, credit cards and stuff like that, just so you can start building up assets and building up equity for your family. Like you can be the one to change your family tree. You can be the one that makes a difference in your family in regards to the type of money that you guys have. And college can be that avenue, but you just have to go about it in the right way. So as long as you can make sure that your funds are together, that's the most important thing that I would say. But in terms of just being away from family and from friends and stuff like that, if God brought you there, he'll take care of you. He'll take care of you the rest of the way there. You just gotta do your work and do your work and have the faith, and you'll be all
right. I'm going to just go ahead and ride that faith wave. You have to take the step out of your comfort zone. You are designed to be so much more in this world than where you're maybe limiting yourself. Your comfort zone is not a safe space. That is a space stopping you from becoming what and who you are designed and developed to be. What I would say is do your research and definitely look at the money, think about the degree, think about all that matters is that you finish the program. Go to a school where I can graduate from here, because that's the point. Get in, minimize your debt, get it done, get the degree, move on. Join all the Greek organizations you want to, all that stuff. I have entirely too many frat brothers without degrees. There's nothing to talk about if you have the letters, and you have the experiences, and you had the most awesome time in college, and you didn't get the degree. You just have less to talk about, and a lot of circles as you move on professionally. So I would tell you, go to where you believe you can be successful, not necessarily where you can be safe. Sometimes going into that unknown space would be the thing that breaks you and makes you the person you're designed to be. As we've all touched on, we weren't these people 10, 12, 11 years ago. We became these people because of those experiences that were out of our norm and out of our comfort zone. So I would encourage you to just kind of break out of that as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And then my tidbit of advice as someone who went and left, honestly, is, you know, it can be challenging. I think that now as a 30-year-old woman, I can look back and be like, honestly, it wasn't that bad. You could have pushed through, or whatever those experiences were, or whatever. Things get better. There's always ups and downs at whatever stage you're in. Um, so I think that being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right, to a certain extent, is important. But also, I know that a lot of things one of the things I often hear from students, and it was kind of my experience, was, well, my mom doesn't want me going that far away. My parents don't want me that far away. I still want to be close. And that is huge. Like, as someone who's always been super family oriented, it is hard to move away, and, say goodbye to your family in August and not see them until Christmas, right? So that is a big deal, but it really is only a couple years of your life, like in the grand scheme of things. But I think that for me, like, if I was giving advice to my, 18-year-old self who was choosing between schools that summer after my freshman year, like, which way am I going to go? I would say to know what your goals are and stick with that. I think that there's always outside influences, family, friends that are going to try to guide you in different directions. But if you are determined to be in a place or a space, there are always resources to help you get there and be there. And not everyone's going to agree with your decisions, but you can't necessarily let that impact. I don't know. I'm always a proponent of, like, what's best for you. Not saying ignore everyone else's advice. That's bad advice right there. Like, you need your support system, but at the end of the day, it's your life to live. So live it in the best way that you think is lived in the way that's best for yourself. And I think that if I would have had this conversation with myself all those years ago, my decision would have been different. Not to say that I don't appreciate, you know, there are benefits of being closer to home, staying in California. I wasn't that far from the beach that Skylar wanted. All sorts of things. There's a lot of proponents, right? But there's pros and cons of everything. And at the end of the day, I ended up moving back to California, and I can go to the beach anyways. So thank you guys so much for being here. Just a reminder to anyone that is any of our students that are on here, Tasha Hutchings is our transfer counselor. So if you have any questions about transferring to an HBCU, please reach out to Tasha. And then we'll just open it up for any questions before we end. Or if the panel wants to share anything else that I didn't ask you specifically about, please feel free. Well, I don't see any questions coming up, so we'll go ahead and close out. But thank you guys so much for being here. And Skylar, Naija, Corinthian, thank you guys, thank you guys, thank you guys for, helping me pull this together. And I just appreciate each and every one of you. And congrats on, you are a father already, but you get to hold your baby in another month or so. That is super exciting. Are you having a boy or a girl?
We're having a baby.
Having a baby. All right.
We don't know. We don't want to know. We want it to be a surprise. So.
Oh, that is awesome.
Old school. But thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Of course, of course, of course. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for being here. We can go ahead and sign off and have a good rest of your Friday.